Her name was Jessica Milton. She was your typical college party girl. Just loved to get into trouble on the weekends. One day she had come across some stories involving other kids and ouija boards and stuck to it like a fly in honey. She just couldn't seem to get enough of it. It was a subject that she became ever so thirsty for, and so it wasn't long before Jessica decided she had to experience it for herself. So she started to sell the idea to her friends. It'd make for such a great party, she thought. It took a lot of bugging, but eventually Jessica forced her friends to concede to the idea. By that point, they would have done anything to shut her mouth. They had agreed to break it out at Georgie's party on Saturday. When Saturday finally came around, Jessica got started early, drinking with one of her close friends before heading off to the party that night. She was good and drunk before they got there, but still, she indulged herself, shot after shot. She drank till she keeled over, passed out before the ouija board ever hit the table. She woke the next day with a dull, burning pain in her chest, right where her heart should be. But she wasn't sick. This struck her as odd given how much she had drank the night before. She peeled herself out of bed and was struck with such an intense sensation of déjà vu, like an echo through time. Like she'd experienced this moment so many times before. It made her dizzy. Once she regained her composure, she lamented that she had missed out on the ouija board experience. It was one of those drab Sundays, dark and overcast outside and dull inside. Even her cable was out. She may not have been sick, but Jessica certainly felt the after effects that morning. She spent the day housebound like a fish out of water, dazed and confused, feeling unsure if she was even in this world. Once Monday came around, those feelings intensified. Everything felt a little darker, duller, and that pain in Jessica's chest, it was a little more pronounced now. Once in math class, she spied her friends, Janice and Brittany. She began to bitch about missing out on the Ouija session, but they acted aloof. She didn't miss it, they assured her, and not to worry because Georgie was throwing a party on Saturday and they had all agreed to play the Ouija board with her. That suited Jessica just fine. She'd get a second chance to play. It gave her something to be excited about, and she needed that because that night was like the night before, very overcast and drab. The cable, still out. She tried to call the cable company but found that she never had any reception. So Jessica buried her nose in some homework and fell asleep early. She woke up Tuesday with a bad feeling, like she had a really bad nightmare but just couldn't remember what it was. She felt off. Meanwhile, a tickling feeling now accompanied that dull pain in her chest. It made her itchy. She toasted a bagel for breakfast, but it's like it never had any taste. She was coming down with a cold, she thought. Jessica then went out to catch the city bus, but when she got on, people just seemed to keep bumping into her, really irritating her. But what irritated her more is that nobody acknowledged it. They just pushed on past her as if she wasn't even there. When she got off the bus, she headed across campus and bumped into some of the guys from Georgie's party last Saturday. She called out to them, but they just glared at her like they were too cool to be seen talking with her. Polar opposite to the camaraderie they had shared at Georgie's party last week. Asshole, she thought. Then history class came. Jessica had her hand up for what felt like forever, but the teacher never did call on her. She was starting to panic now. Why was nobody acknowledging her? Were rumors being spread about her? The anxiety started to escalate until she ran into Brittany in the hall. Brittany could see the worry on her face. Jessica explained to her all the things that had happened, but Brittany just laughed at her, told her she was being ridiculous. Maybe she was, Jessica admitted. On the way home from school, Jessica stopped by an ATM to withdraw some cash. She stuck her card in, but before she could even enter her PIN, a message flashed across the screen. Told her to call such and such a person from her bank. Jessica was starting to feel like she was cursed. She didn't have the energy or motivation to call or to wait on hold for an hour or so. She spent the rest of the evening listening to music and doing homework. Wednesday and Thursday were like reruns of the days before, but by Friday, Jessica was sure she had something wrong with her. She woke up with such a terribly bad feeling. That gut feeling you feel before something really, really bad is about to happen. She tried to shake it off, made some breakfast, but she couldn't taste anything. Not pop, coffee, cereal, nothing. The texture of everything felt stale. Even a box of cereal just opened. The pain in Jessica's chest had intensified too. She began to worry that it might be a precursor to a heart attack, but she didn't feel pressure or any of the other typical symptoms. It was different. It felt like burning, and it was sharp. It was also itchy and somehow cold, as if she had spilled cold water on her shirt. When Jessica went to catch the bus that morning, she lined up behind two other people, and yet when they were boarding, the driver actually shut the door in her face. What was wrong with everyone, Jessica thought. She tried to call City Hall to complain, but she never had any reception again. So she walked to school. It was still dark. None of Jessica's teachers mentioned her absence. When she ran into Janice and Brittany again, they asked her if she was going to Georgie's party. Jessica was hesitant, and that wasn't like her. They picked up on that and insisted that she went, promising once again that they'd all play the Ouija board just like Jessica wanted. Jessica agreed to go, but inside she was already thinking of excuses. Jessica got home to find that the cable was still out. She was infuriated. She tried to call the cable company again, but again had no reception. She'd wished she had a landline. This week felt so oddly isolated. She never talked to many people, never hung out, just lonely nights at home with nothing to do. It was dark, drab, and everything just felt hollow. When Jessica woke up on Saturday, that terrible feeling she'd been having had intensified. Something awful was now impending doom. And the pain in her chest was now bad enough to warrant a visit to the hospital. But she decided to get a shower first. Unfortunately, as she started to step into the tub, she was startled to find it crawling with ear wigglers and millipedes. She screamed. It looked like they'd been coming from the drain. She felt disgusted and dirty. Jessica got dressed and ran out of the apartment and then headed toward the bus stop. On the way, Brittany drove past and pulled over. Brittany could tell Jessica was out of sorts, told her to jump in. Jessica was practically hysterical, rambling as best she could the terrifying things pervading her mind. It took some convincing, but Brittany was able to calm her down, at least enough to go back to her place for a couple of drinks. The alcohol numbed Jessica's fears, made her feel somewhat normal again. It was enough for Brittany to talk her into postponing her hospital visit for the next day. Besides, as scared as Jessica was, she felt she had to go to that party. They were all going to play the Ouija board on her demand, after all. Jessica was good and drunk before she got there, but still, she indulged herself, shot after shot. She wasn't the only one either. Some were drinking, some were smoking, some were dropping acid. The music was loud, the people were excited, and the laughter deafening. It was the party to end all parties. Everybody just kept pushing their limits. Sure enough, the Ouija board soon hit the table, but it wasn't your typical seance. Nobody was focused, nothing respected. It was just a loud and chaotic orgy of drugs and alcohol, using the board as a prop. Jessica soon felt herself slipping away, but her body kept moving, like something else had taken over. She looked around the room. She could tell she wasn't the only one. Everybody was animated, but empty. Prisoners in their own bodies. They were possessed. Everybody's eyes had sunken in, just shadows staring back, while their smiles stretched ear to ear. The cacophony of maniacal laughter began to poison the room, drowning out the music as the demons took control. Like happily willing zombies, they grabbed knives, took shards of glass and other tools of violence, and began to slice each other up into pieces, smiling and laughing like rabid animals during the slaughter. Jessica felt the others' pain, their fear. She understood the demons wanted it that way, to witness the massacre, but to be powerless to stop it. And just as the terror became too much to bear, Jessica felt the incredible sharp and burning sear in her chest as a butcher's knife plunged into her heart, and then she collapsed. Terrified and in agony, she could still feel the smile on her face, made by something else. Her warm blood pumped out of her chest as it began to tickle and turn cold on her shirt. It was then that all of her foggy memories became clear, that her déjà vu made sense. They were all dead, but Jessica knew she was alone in this. She'd been the one to push the Ouija board on everyone else. This was Jessica's afterlife, her punishment. The other characters were just puppets in the show. Jessica would relive her last week over and over again, starting each cycle with just foggy memories and a sense of foreboding. A truth that only revealed itself once the tragedy had struck again. So the fear and pain would always be fresh, and she could build no tolerance.